Picture Hawaii in your mind. Sun-drenched beaches, gentle waves lapping at the shore, and palm trees swaying in the warm, fragrant breeze. It's a place where the air feels soft, the sun seems to shine a little brighter, and every day feels like a postcard come to life. For most people, Hawaii is the ultimate escape, a paradise where worries melt away and nature's beauty is on full display. The gentle rustle of palm leaves and the soothing sound of the ocean are the soundtrack to daily life. Families gather on the sand, surfers ride perfect waves, and the islands seem untouched by the troubles of the world. It's a place where time slows down, and the only thing on your mind is which beach to visit next. But in February 2026, that peaceful paradise was shattered. Out of nowhere, a monstrous storm swept across the islands, bringing hurricane-force winds, relentless rain, and even a rare blanket of snow atop the highest volcanic peaks. This was not the Hawaii you see in travel brochures. In a matter of hours, residents and visitors went from basking in perfect weather to scrambling for shelter as the skies turned menacing and the winds began to roar. The sky grew dark as night in the middle of the day. Winds howled through the streets, and rain fell in blinding sheets, flooding homes and turning roads into rivers. Emergency alerts blared on phones and radios, urging everyone to stay inside and brace for the worst. The familiar sounds of island life, birds, laughter, music, were drowned out by the relentless roar of the storm. Massive trees and power poles crashed to the ground, roads disappeared underwater, and the majestic mountains of Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa turned white with snow, a sight almost no one had ever seen. For days, Hawaii was under siege. The storm refused to let up, battering the islands with wave after wave of wind and rain. The focus shifted from surfing and sunshine to survival and safety, as families huddled indoors and communities came together to weather the crisis. Daily life came to a standstill. Schools and businesses closed, streets emptied, and the entire state braced for whatever would come next. This was more than just a bad day of weather. It was a once-in-a-generation event that would be remembered for years. The storm's intensity shattered records and defied expectations. It was a complete weather package: howling wind, pounding rain, and snow, all at once. Meteorologists scrambled to keep up as the storm broke new ground for Hawaii. Hawaii's legendary beauty was matched only by nature's raw, unpredictable power. In this video, we'll take you through the origins, the fury, and the aftermath of Hawaii's wildest storm, a story of resilience, awe, and the incredible force of the natural world. We'll explore the wind that toppled trees, the rain that flooded streets, and the snow that transformed the mountains, making this event truly unforgettable. This is the story of when Hawaii's weather went wild, and how the islands faced a storm like no other. What caused this monster storm? To understand the origins of this historic weather event, we have to look at the unique combination of forces that converged over Hawaii. It wasn't just a single factor, but a rare alignment of atmospheric conditions that set the stage for disaster. Two key ingredients collided over Hawaii, creating a volatile mix that meteorologists rarely see in this region. First, a stalled weather front lingered over the islands, refusing to move on. This front acted like a wall, trapping moisture and energy right over Hawaii and creating a breeding ground for trouble that would soon escalate. Second, a slow-moving low-pressure system in the upper atmosphere pulled in vast amounts of tropical moisture from the surrounding Pacific. This system acted like a giant engine, drawing in warm, wet air and fueling the storm's intensity. These two systems combined, feeding off each other and growing stronger with every passing hour. The energy in the atmosphere kept building, and the storm began to take on a life of its own. The storm didn't rush through. It lingered, hammering the islands for days on end. Rain fell in relentless sheets, and winds howled through towns and forests, leaving little time for recovery between waves of severe weather. By February 9th, the National Weather Service had the entire state under flood watch and wind advisories. Warnings flashed across screens, urging residents to prepare for the worst. This was no ordinary storm. It was a statewide emergency. Emergency crews mobilized, and communities braced for impact as the threat became all too real. The slow movement meant relentless rain and wind, compounding the damage with every hour the storm remained overhead. Floodwaters rose, and roads became impassable. A faster storm would have passed quickly, but this one sat and spun, dumping record-breaking rainfall and battering the landscape. The islands were caught in a cycle of unending downpours and gusty winds. The result, a worst-case scenario, with all the meteorological elements aligning for a long, destructive event. The environment was pushed to its limits, and the impacts would be felt for weeks to come. Hawaii was about to face one of its most intense weather challenges ever. Residents scrambled to protect their homes, and emergency teams worked around the clock. The stage was set for disaster, as the islands braced for the full force of nature's fury. The numbers from this storm are staggering, painting a vivid picture of nature's raw power unleashed across the Hawaiian Islands. Each statistic tells a story of communities tested and landscapes transformed in a matter of hours. Wind gusts topped 70 miles per hour on Maui and Molokai, enough to bring down trees, rip roofs from homes, and leave entire neighborhoods battered. The relentless winds left a trail of destruction, with debris scattered across roads and yards. Oahu, Lanai, and the Big Island saw gusts over 60 miles per hour, making travel dangerous and forcing residents to shelter indoors as the storm raged on. Rainfall was off the charts, over 30 inches at Lapahoho on the Big Island and more than 23 inches at Waikimoi on Maui. Streets turned into rivers and backyards became lakes as the deluge continued hour after hour. Rivers overflowed their banks, landslides blocked vital roads, and flash floods swept through entire communities, forcing evacuations and leaving many stranded. Even the highest peaks, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, were buried under a foot of snow, a rare sight in Hawaii, turning volcanic summits into winter wonderlands amid the chaos below. At the storm's peak, 45,000 customers lost power. By nightfall, 19,000 were still in the dark. Utility crews worked through hazardous conditions, racing to restore electricity as families waited anxiously. Schools and the University of Hawaii closed statewide for safety, leaving classrooms empty and campuses eerily silent as the storm passed overhead. The storm's impact was measured in broken records, battered infrastructure, and disrupted lives. Roads were washed out, homes were damaged, and the recovery would take weeks, if not months. It was a crisis that touched every corner of the islands, from remote mountain villages to bustling city streets, sparing no one from its reach. The numbers tell the story. This was a storm for the history books, shattering previous records and leaving meteorologists stunned by its intensity. Hawaii had never seen anything quite like it. The fury was undeniable, and its memory will linger for generations to come. The wind was relentless, a roaring, unpredictable force. Residents described it as a freight train that never stopped. Roofs were torn off, signs ripped away, and debris became dangerous projectiles. Massive trees toppled, blocking roads and crushing power lines. On Maui's Hana Highway, landslides and fallen trees made travel impossible. In Honolulu, snapped power poles created hazards citywide. Wind gusts rivaled a Category 1 hurricane, especially in mountain valleys and ridges. The islands, used to gentle trade winds, faced a destructive onslaught. The wind weakened structures, set the stage for chaos, and made recovery efforts even harder. It was a key part of the storm's 1-2 punch. Hawaii's vulnerability was on full display. If the wind was fierce, the rain was devastating. The storm's slow pace meant rain fell for days, saturating the ground and overwhelming rivers. Over 30 inches at Lapahoho and 23 inches at Waikimoi, these are numbers that reshape landscapes. Gentle streams became raging torrents, triggering landslides and flooding homes. Roads disappeared underwater, isolating communities and stranding residents. Emergency services were inundated with calls for help. Even urban Honolulu saw drainage systems overwhelmed. Hawaii's steep terrain funneled water into deadly flash floods with little warning. The February 2026 storm was a dramatic reminder of the island's vulnerability to extreme rain. The consequences were immediate and severe. The power of water was undeniable. This was rain on a historic scale. Perhaps the most surprising element, snow in Hawaii. On February 8th and 9th, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa were blanketed in white. Webcams showed a winter wonderland atop volcanic peaks. At over 13,000 feet, temperatures easily drop below freezing, even in the tropics. When storms bring moisture and cold, snow falls instead of rain. While snow isn't unheard of on these summits, a foot in one storm is impressive. The blizzard closed the road to Mauna Kea's summit, home to world-class telescopes. The snow was the final surreal touch to a storm that had it all. Hawaii's wild weather had reached new heights. The storm brought Hawaii to a standstill. High winds and soaked ground toppled trees and power lines, plunging tens of thousands into darkness. Utility crews braved dangerous conditions to restore power, but the damage was immense. By Sunday night, 19,000 customers were still without electricity, Schools and universities closed statewide, keeping families safe at home. Major roads, including Maui's Hana Highway and the route to Mauna Kea, were blocked by debris, landslides, and snow. Emergency services struggled to reach isolated communities. For days, life paused as Hawaii waited for the storm to pass. The storm's impact was felt in every home and neighborhood. Nature had pressed the pause button on paradise. This was a rare, statewide event. Every island felt the storm's wrath. Wind gusts over 70 miles per hour and rainfall topping 30 inches broke records and expectations. The culprit, a powerful Kona low, a subtropical cyclone that brings winds from the southwest, not the usual trade winds. Hawaii's unique geography amplifies storms. The tall volcanic mountains force moist air upward, creating intense rain. The orographic effect turned the windward slopes into rain-soaked danger zones. While each element of the storm was familiar, their combination and intensity were unprecedented. Hawaii's location in the vast Pacific makes it vulnerable to powerful, moisture-laden systems. The dramatic topography creates microclimates where extreme weather can develop fast. This storm was a perfect storm, rare, destructive, and unforgettable. It showcased the full range of Hawaii's wild weather. As the storm moved on, the scale of the damage became clear. Communities rallied to clear debris, restore power, and help neighbors recover. The event was a wake-up call. Hawaii's vulnerability to extreme weather goes beyond hurricanes and tsunamis. Experts questioned whether infrastructure could withstand future storms of this magnitude. Climate scientists warned that a warming world could bring more extreme events. Warmer oceans and air mean more fuel for storms and heavier rainfall. Residents were urged to stay alert, as more rain was forecast for the coming weekend. The storm was a humbling reminder. Even paradise isn't immune to nature's fury. Preparation and respect for the weather are essential for island life. The images of flooded streets and snow-capped peaks won't soon be forgotten. Hawaii will rebuild, but the lessons of this wild storm will shape its future.